Hello folks and welcome back. So this time I thought we'd set up some of the collectibles, namely the coins. So, back in our content browser, under the blueprints folder, I want to right click and create a new folder called Collectibles. Putting them in a folder because we're also going to have gems later on. This will make it easier for organizational purposes. See, organization in game development is super important. That way you can easily navigate to what you need to tweak or update. And you save yourself a whole lot of headache by grouping things together, naming it with good convention, all that kind of stuff. So in the collectibles folder, I'm going to right click and create a blueprint class of an actor called coin underscore BP. And for now, that's all we're going to do with that because we need to actually make the mesh for it. And the way we're going to make the mesh this time is we're going to use BSP brushes. So, I just found this. Okay. So, in Unreal Engine 4, it had that box over here with the basic stuff, like you could put, it had the lighting and the visual effects and all kinds of stuff like that. You'll notice in this one, it's missing. But if you want it, up in the top, you'll see Window, Place Actors. Click that, and then here's all that. It's laid out a little bit differently, but here's like just empty stuff and the lights, some basic shapes, which we're not going to use those. We're going to use the geometry because these are the BSP brushes. So what we're going to use for this one is a cylinder. So I'm going to drag that out and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And then over in the details panel, you'll see the brush settings to where you can change its shape if you wanted to. You can set its height on this Z number, which right now is just going to make it go left and right because I rotated it. But I'm going to set that to about 25. And the radius is how big around it is, which I'm also going to set to about 25, 50. Well, let's take a look. Let's put it close to the character and see how big it needs to be. So that seems a bit... That's a huge coin. Alright, so I'm going to set the Z to about 10 and the outer radius to about 20. That looks decent. Yeah, not bad. But you'll notice that it kind of has some jagged edges. So right here on the sides, this number is how many of these polygons it'll get on the sides. So the higher you make it, the more rounded it gets. But you also got to keep in mind that it can affect performance if it has too many vertices. So I think 16 is a good amount because it kind of takes out that harsh edge, but still not too much to where it's like overdone, you know. So here's what we use as the mesh. And now in the content browser next to the coin blueprint, we want to right click and create a material because we want to, you know, we don't want that grain stuff. So create a material called coin underscore matte. Double click, open it up, and then you will be greeted by this page. So holding 3 on the keyboard and left clicking will give you this node, which is a constant 3 vector, which basically it if you look over here in the details panel and drop it down, it's constantly pushing out these 3 values on the red, green, and blue. So you can determine what color you want it to be. For a coin, I'm thinking something gold. So you can double click and open it up, make it whatever. And then I'm just going to hook that straight into base color. And then it's got a nice gold color to it. But I don't want it to be completely matte finish kind of thing. So holding 1 on the keyboard will give you a kind of like a float variable for materials. You can basically adjust this back and forth. Oh, you can go higher than 1. But yeah, it's basically a float. But I'm going to put it at 0.85. And I'm going to hook this to the roughness to where it has just a little bit. 0.65. But what this does is, like, if I put it at 0, you'll see it's very reflective. Actually, that looks kind of nice. Yeah. Maybe I'll do that. Alright. Well, I'm going to leave it right there then. It looks decent. So, back out here, I'm going to select one of them. And the way I used to do it was I'd have to select something and then go push it and push it. But that sucks. Especially when you get into some of those bigger BSPs. It's like 16 dozen sides and it's like, just shoot me in the face already, man. So what you can do is underneath that surface materials is this geometry node. Right here it says select. If you drop that down, you can select you can select different faces based on different parameters. What I want is to select all adjacent surfaces, which basically is anything connected to the surface that I have selected will be highlighted. So you'll see it's got that dark orange line around it all now. So what you can do now is make sure you got that selected, and then boom, gold coin. Neat, right? And it looks nice. Look at it. It is shiny. I'm digging it. Alright. So with that done, we need to convert it into a static mesh, because right now it's just a BSP. And we can't use a BSP inside of a blueprint. As far as I know. I mean, you might be able to, but I'm not sure. So select the BSP inside the level, and then over here under, is it under geometry? No. Surface, no. Under the brush settings, that's right. So we'll click the show advanced button, and then you can create a static mesh. Technically speaking, you can use BSPs to make almost any mesh you want. If you got the patience to do it, it can be done. I mean, it's not the greatest thing, but it technically can be done. But it's basically good for little throwaway things like this, like coins or something not too intricate. So I'm going to create a static mesh, and in the blueprint folder, I'm going to put it into the collectible. I'm going to highlight the collectibles, and I'm going to replace the name and call it coin underscore SM. So SM for static mesh. Then create it, and then boom, there it is. So now, yeah. So opening up the coin blueprint, and then going back to your content browser and selecting that coin static mesh. Inside the viewport of your coin blueprint, in the components tab, we'll hit add, and we want to add that static mesh that we just created. Now we don't want it right here on the ground level, because if we leave it there and then we drag this out, you'll see it's in the ground. And you can move it up like this, but you'd have to do that for every time. Like if I wanted to put a coin there and then I wanted to put a coin here, I'd have to go and it's a pain in the backside. But what we can do is inside the blueprint, we'll just drag it up the one time. I'm going to bump it up to, let's try there. Yeah. So now, anytime you drag it out, it's automatically at the same height. It adds a little bit more uniformity and looks nice. So, another thing that we want to do, because if I press play right now, you'll see it's just static in the air. It doesn't do nothing. But a lot of games nowadays, they have a little spinning to it. So back in the coin blueprint, we're going to add another component called rotating movement. And this will let it basically just spin around on the z-axis. So I'll just compile real quick and take a look. I'm just going to simulate. And you'll see it spins now. And you can adjust it to whatever speed you want. I'm going to slow it down because I like, where was it? I think it was like 45. Yeah. But yeah, you can bump it to anything you want. Like if I put it at 450. Then see it goes faster, slower, based on whatever you want, based on this rotation value inside the rotating component. So I'm going to leave it at 45 for now. Another thing we want to do is highlight the coin mesh, and we want to add a sphere collision. So we'll drag it up to encompass the coin. And then what we want to do is inside the event graph, we'll delete everything. We'll highlight the sphere collision, and in the details panel, we'll scroll down to the on component begin overlap, the second one. And then on begin overlap, we want to cast to the player to check to see that that's the one that overlapped it. And if it is, for now, we'll just destroy the actor. In a minute, we'll actually add it to an amount for the character. But just to make sure everything's working, yep, she collected it. Well, actually, right now, she just destroyed it. But we'll go into the player blueprint now and add a variable to her that says, it's called coins. Now, for the variable type, right here where it says Boolean, if I click that, you can see all these types pop up. We want an integer. An integer is a whole number. So like 1, 2, 3, well, you know numbers. So it's any number without a decimal. It's kind of like a float, except for float has a decimal, so it can be like 1.358, whatever, however many numbers you want. For this one, integer is our guy. So we'll compile that real quick. And it should default automatically to 0, so no problem there. So we'll delete that destroy actor for a minute. Now on begin overlap in our coin, we want to cast to the player, and as player we want to get coins, because we want to drag off the coins and add. We want to make sure that that says +1, and then we want to drag off from the player one more time and set coins. So we need to get it, add to it, and then set it to the new number. So when I get that first one, it'll take it from 0, add 1 to it, and then set it as 1. And then we'll destroy the actor. Now we need a way to be able to check that real quick. So under the blueprints folder, I'm going to create one more folder called HUD. And we'll just set up a player screen real quick. So I'm going to right click, and under the user face user face. Words are hard. Under user interface, I'm going to go to Widget Blueprint. A widget is a screen element, so it's a way you can communicate information from the game to the player in a readable fashion. So I'm going to create a widget blueprint and call it player HUD _W. Double click and open that up. One thing I like to do with widgets is over here in the hierarchy, under the player HUD, for the canvas panel, I'm going to right click that and wrap it with a scale box and a size box. So the scale box will make sure everything inside the widget scales appropriately based off this, regardless of what device you're on, or the, you know, the what's that word, man? Dimensions of that device. The size box is where we can determine the size that we want to scale to. So over in the child layout, there's a width override and a height override. I'm going to click both of those, and for the width, I'm going to set it to 1920, and for the height, 1080. But basically, you would just want to maintain this aspect ratio, 16:9. You could use 1280 × 720. So you could do that, but I'm going to do 1920 by 1080. Personally. So with the canvas panel selected, up here in the palette, there is a text feature. I'm going to drag it into the window, and under the slot canvas panel, for the anchor, I'm going to anchor it to the top right. Then I'm going to set its X position and Y position both to 0. For the alignment, this is the X alignment, Y alignment. And what this does is it'll change how it reacts to its anchor. So if I set its alignment to 1 on the X, you'll see it swaps sides completely. Whereas if it's like 0.5, then it's halfway, 0.25, etc. 0.11839. You can do whatever you want. I'm gonna do 1 though. And now for the position X, I'm going to, that's the wrong way. I'm gonna go negative 50, no, negative 25. And then for the Y, I'm gonna go negative 50. So negative 25, positive 50. That way it's not right on the window, that way it's a little bit more readable. Now with the text box selected, I am going to come down to the content. I'm going to drop this arrow down on the font, which will let you basically, like, you can decide how big you want the font. I don't remember the value now. 24. So I'm going to set it to about 35 on the size. I'm going to set its justification to align text right. And what this does, if I drag this like this, you'll see how it's over on the left. If I hit align right, now it'll start from here, and no matter how big that gets for text, it'll just shoot off to the right and it won't go off the screen. But I'm going to delete all that. That's just for demonstration. So I'm going to bring this back, and I'm just going to fill it with 3 zeros for now. For the typeface, I'm going to set it to italic. With it selected, no. Up here in the top right, you'll see where the designer is highlighted. We want to click this, graph. We will delete the pre-construct and the event tick, because on event construct, basically whenever this widget is created, we want it to do something. So as soon as it's constructed, it'll fire this off. What we want it to do is cast to the player. For the object, we're going to drag off and get character. Oh, get player character. Probably, let's see. Drag off, get player character. We want the character. Get player character. And then as player, we're going to drag off and promote that to a variable called player ref, so that we can call this reference anywhere inside of our widget. So now, back in the designer, with that selected, we can go to the content, the text, and we want to bind this, because we want this to be able to change based on a variable inside of our player blueprint. So I'll click the drop down for that. Under the create binding, you'll see that player reference we just set up. And oh, there's coins. And there we go. But now we need to actually put this widget on the screen. So in our player blueprint, we'll go to the event graph, find some space up here, right click, type begin play, and on begin play, basically when this character starts moving through the world, we want to create that widget. Create widget, there it is. The widget we want to create is the player HUD, and then from the return value, we want to add it to the viewport. And there it is. So now you'll see I have that 0 up in the top right. And when I collect the coin, I collected the coin. So yeah, you can add as many as you want now. So I'm just going to add a few more. Oh, you can rapid duplicate things like that. If you have something highlighted and you hold Alt on the keyboard while you drag it, it'll automatically create a duplicate. So instead of having to drag it out a bunch of times and then place them around, you can just do it quickly like that. So now when I collect all these, I'm collecting me some coins. And I kind of like the way that looks with the little mushroom beside it. It's not bad. Let's see. I'm going to experiment with something real quick. So maybe like here. There, no, like that. A little bit of dynamic to it. Makes it like a, I don't know, like it was a radioactive one or something. I don't know. But yeah, so now you got some coins that you can collect. So, yep. So in the next one, we'll probably set up the gems, and then we will get started on some moving platforms. So I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.